The beautiful country of Bhutan in the Tibetan region of Asia has one of the most interesting and limited tourist industries in the world, but because of how many great things I've heard about the great country, I decided to take a trip out there for myself and check it out. Our trip begins at Singapore's Changi Airport here in Terminal 3. The only airlines allowed to operate in Bhutan at the moment are the two national carriers, the first one being Bhutan Airlines, and the second being their flag carrier, DrukAir, which is what we'll be traveling on today in business class. There's also going to be some timestamps down below to help you sort through the video and find the exact content that you're looking for. DrukAir, meaning Dragon Air in Bhutanese, due to the dragon being one of the main national symbols of the country, operates a few routes throughout Asia. Since they have a small fleet, they operate mostly through Fifth Freedom flights. We're on one of those today from Singapore to Guwahati, India, then continuing on to PARO. I won't be spending too much time highlighting Changi's world-renowned airport, as I am working on a video that should cover the entire airport and the activities and interesting places within. In the meantime, however, I did get a chance to visit one of the lounges here since I was holding a business class ticket. DrukAir passengers, as well as passengers on some of the other select groups of airlines, have access to the contract lounge known as the Marhaba Lounge here in Terminal 3. To get to the Marhaba Lounge, you just need to find the signs directing you towards the terminal, where each lounge is noted easily. The specific lounge is upstairs near the Singapore Food Street, which is made to look like Singapore's famous hawker stalls, although including restaurants like Subway. Once inside the Marhaba Lounge, you'll find that it isn't the largest lounge in the world, nor is it the grandest, but as I always like to mention, you don't always need something flashy. Just having some free food, charging ports, comfortable seats, and private restrooms, especially some showers, is plenty enough for what you need, and it did have all of these things. The drink selection isn't bad between your collection of different soft drinks and alcoholic options like wines and beers. The food selection isn't the greatest as compared to other lounges in the world, but as far as contract lounges go, it's fairly what you'd expect, with a normal collection of some hot and some cold options, mostly of Southeast Asian inspiration. The cold food options are mostly salads between your normal salads and your fruit salads. The hot options are a bit better. Starting off, you're going to find a good selection of breads with butters, jams, and honeys, as well as a toaster machine for any of the breads or pastries that you'd like warmed up. That's followed up with the hot options, which have items native to Asia, such as noodles and curry. The toppings on the counter also go well with these if you'd like to add some extra bits of flavor. They also have some more Western and European options, such as potatoes and frankfurters. The view from the lounge isn't bad, as you have a view of one of the main runways here in Singapore. The only issue is the side effects of the ways they attempt to block out the sun. First off, they install these visors of sorts, which just limits the amount of straight-out visibility you have. They also have windows covered in these polka dots, which are effective at keeping it a bit cooler, but it does have a detrimental effect on the visibility, and especially in moments where you're trying to take a picture through the windows. Fortunately, this lounge does have showers, or I guess I should say shower singular. This is all you really need, but they do request you keep the shower quick since they need to clean it and get it ready for the next in the line of people. The shower room itself is fairly nice, but don't forget to ask for towels if you need them because it wasn't automatically stocked. After the shower, I opted not to eat in the lounge, just due to the fact that I was expecting some food on the flight, so I left the lounge shortly after having charged up my devices since I wasn't sure what type of charging options I would have on board. From there, it was a short walk to gate A6, which is where we would be departing. Gates A6 through A8 are actually bus gates, meaning the plane is actually parked somewhere else on the airport, away from the terminal. We'd be boarding a bus instead that would be taking us out to our airplane. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video, Bhutan has had a pretty limited tourist industry throughout its history. That was largely self-imposed as they kept their borders shut to preserve their culture. But DrukAir was founded in '81 shortly after they reopened their borders to the outside world, welcoming its first foreign visitors and tourists. DrukAir was pretty much the only airline operating within the country until the early 2000s, when Bhutan Airlines was launched as well, which will be my topic on my next video. But for now, we're heading out to our airplane for DrukAir, the flag carrier of Bhutan, where today we'll be on board their A319. Interestingly enough, our airplane today is an 18-year-old A319 that has lived its entire life with DrukAir. It just makes me wonder if there are certain aircraft requirements for PARO Airport due to the tricky approach that makes it easier for them to just order their own airplanes and continue to operate them to the specific requirements. But who really knows, it's pretty much all just speculation. Anyways, entering the airplane, we see the 2-2 business class setup that is most common on these narrow-body aircraft like the A319. Interestingly enough though, there is 4 rows of business class seats, which is about 1 to 2 more than the average A319's business class cabin. The seat had a unique color and pattern, but most of all I found it cushiony and comfortable like an old couch. The decorative headrest sheet has another portrait of a dragon paying homage to the dragon culture of Bhutan. The seat also comes with a pillow that was comfortable but fairly small and thin. Keep in mind, because PARO Airport requires daytime approaches, there aren't any overnight flights on their airlines, so they make sure you're comfortable, but they don't really have to supply enough bedding for a full sleep. In addition, most flights aren't that long. As a matter of fact, this flight to and from Singapore is one of their longest. The bulkhead wall decoration is just another example of how well they stick with their theme and honor their country of that dragon culture. Although simple, I do appreciate the style of the seatback pocket. When the pockets have multiple pockets like this, it makes it easier for you to organize the items you brought on board. That, combined with the literature pocket above it, gives you plenty of storage for your stuff without all of your cables getting tangled up. You can also see the legroom available in this seat. I'm 5'9" for reference, and you can see that there's not an excess of legroom, with just enough room for my feet under the seat in front of me. It's made better by being able to put my bag under the middle section of the seats, but my guess is that them cramming in the extra row of seats as compared to most A319s costs them some of that normal legroom. While we waited for the next bus of passengers to show up, we were given hot scented towels along with DrukAir chocolates by the crew. Flying out of Singapore on a narrow-body airplane meant that I was grateful to have the guaranteed individual air vents. On a lot of the wide-body airplanes here in Singapore, you'll be hard-pressed to guarantee those vents. And in the heat and humidity that comes with Singapore's weather, I was definitely grateful to have them today. To the left is the center console. Nothing inside of it, just an armrest, but on the side is a small pocket, only big enough for a personal device and a couple of chargers. The seat also comes with 2 adjustments, one for the generous seat recline and the other for a leg rest. And the front of that console features a universal charging port along with a USB port for every seat. The other armrest is home to the tray table for each seat, which I was struggling to get out one-handed while filming with my other hand. But it does fold out, so you're able to use either half of it or the full amount if you unfold it all the way. It also has a wonderful little stand for your device, which was nice for watching downloaded shows that I had while eating, since there was no other ways to prop it up besides holding it. Speaking of entertainment, believe it or not, DrukAir does have their own in-flight entertainment. It isn't on any seatback TV since the seats are fairly plain, but all done through your personal device, which we'll look at more once we get in the air. In addition to the in-flight entertainment information, the other seatback literature that you're going to find is the normal safety cards and air sickness bags as well. I did have some fun looking through the magazines, the first of which was just a duty-free or Sky Mall type of catalog with some good items for purchase. The other magazine, however, had much more interesting content, not only about Bhutan's sites, but also information on the tourism information and packages, and lastly some information about DrukAir, their fleet, and their destinations. The DrukAir crew on board wore beautiful Bhutanese-style robe uniforms, each adorned with a pin featuring the picture of Bhutan's current king and royal family, something that most people in Bhutan wear. The bulkhead also had a collection of literature if you wanted some more entertainment. It was fairly warm, so I decided to go with only some still water for my pre-departure beverage, but the alternative was their signature mixed drink, which my seat neighbor took. They weren't serving an alcohol option, but it was a ginger mint type of drink. The lavatory itself was fairly boring, but what I did like is rather than using fake scents, they used flowers to give the restroom much more of a natural scent. And then the only problem with being in our hardstand was that it meant that we were quite a ways from the active runway, considering we were all the way to the far west side of the airport, and our current departure runway was the most easterly of the runways, runway 20 left. Once in the air, it's finally time to get comfortable. First step was putting up the leg rest. You can see that the only unfortunate piece being that there was no footrest, so your feet naturally hung off the edge, but it was still nice to have a place to kick up your legs. To access the entertainment, you need only to connect to the Wi-Fi. DrukAir doesn't actually have any in-flight Wi-Fi, but by connecting to this, you can go to the website in the brochure or scan the QR code as a shortcut. This will get you to the in-flight entertainment portal, which has the normal categories like movies, TV shows, audios, and maps. I did wonder what selection they'd have, considering they don't fly to any destinations that watch predominantly American films. Not too surprisingly, the selection of movies wasn't too expansive. It was mostly Asian and Indian, but there were a few American releases, but not the ones you'd usually find on airplanes, so it was kind of fun to be forced to watch other movies that I wouldn't usually pick. There were a few more American TV shows, but the selection of TV shows wasn't great across the board. The shows they did have were just a couple random episodes, but I was honestly just glad to have anything, since I wasn't expecting to have anything at all. The audio was fairly simple, just a few collections of different genres and regions. Surprisingly, it was the game section that was by far the most extensive. It was almost like a Steam sort of gaming system, which was wonderful, but it didn't seem to fit in with the rest of the content. There was also a section including a map and flight info. Although being fairly basic, it was everything you'd realistically need, and it was always great to be able to follow along on your journey and see just how far you are from your destination. And lastly, the last thing that we'll come across here is access to some videos and information on both DrukAir, as well as some stuff about the PARO airport specifically. Our first leg from Singapore to Guwahati was by far the longer of the two legs at a little over 4 hours, and so we had our main meal service. While they got it all ready, they offered us first a packet of trail mix type of snack and a selection of beverages. It wasn't long after that before we were offered our menus, which had a good selection of local Bhutanese choices. The first pages included the beverages including the Bhutanese favorites, the Bhutan mountain coffee, and especially the cordyceps tea, which is kind of a miracle food here in Bhutan. The next pages included the breakfast and lunch options, which had a full set list. On this flight we were able to choose between breakfast or lunch, and then we could choose from one of the two main courses underneath. The next pages were the wine list. They didn't have too extensive of a selection, but there was a couple reds and a couple whites. Then started the harder alcohols along with more of the soft drinks as well. This also offered a more in-depth description of each of the beverages, including a description of ogap, which I heard referenced throughout my time in Bhutan, and I think it has to do with using all the local ingredients, but I never quite figured that out, so if you know, let me know down below. Lastly, they have their signature cocktail and mocktail. They sounded super good, but unfortunately when I asked for it, they informed me that they didn't have the ingredients for it today. The meal came in a couple servings. First off was just a basic salad and bread for starters. It came with a couple cheeses and a mango mousse type of dessert, but the real star of the meal was the entree, however. For that entree, I went with the udon noodles with teriyaki chicken, which may have been one of the best things I've ever eaten on an airplane. It also came with garlic bread, which was toasted to perfection, but also with that tiny little cup of red chilies, which they said would add some spice, but they didn't say how much. Basically, in my stroke of genius, I decided to pour them all on before even trying them first. And on God, that may have been one of the spiciest things I have ever eaten. But it was so good, so I just decided to power through it and use the garlic bread afterwards to resurrect myself. To wrap up the meal, I had to try the cordyceps tea. It's supposed to be a natural remedy for most ailments, despite making a tea that only tastes alright. Perhaps my favorite part of the meal service, however, was just the salt and pepper shakers that came with the tray. A great ceramic material with the same dragon decoration carried throughout the cabin. As we prepared for our arrival into Guwahati, they came by with mints for everyone. Small mints, but strong mints. Since this first leg operates as a fifth freedom flight, there were some passengers disembarking in Guwahati, not continuing on to Bhutan. We also picked up some additional passengers here as well. India is one of the countries with the most tourists to Bhutan since it's much easier for them to get that tourist visa. So most flights to Bhutan contain at least one stop in an Indian city. This fifth freedom operation works well for the two airlines of Bhutan since they operate such small fleets. It allows them to reach more destinations and therefore more tourists. Before long, we had offloaded about 40 people and taken on about 20. By then, we were able to take off on the leg we really were anticipating, off to PARO Bhutan, the most dangerous approach flown by a jet. The leg to Paro is only about an hour tops, and it also includes only about 10 to 15 minutes in cruise just because how long the approach takes due to the multiple visual segments. For those who are unfamiliar with this approach, it is frequently ranked in the top 3 of the world's hardest approaches to fly. The biggest difference is the others are not flown with jets, but instead with turboprops, which are much easier to maneuver on these types of approaches. Part of the reason that Bhutan doesn't allow foreign airlines into the country is partly to preserve the culture and regulate visitors better, but also because of the training pilots go through to be able to land here. At any given time, there's only about 20 pilots with the required training to land at Paro. What makes the approach so difficult is a few factors. First, the airport itself sits over 7,000 feet in elevation at about 7,400 feet in total, so high altitude performance factors are in play. In addition, the airport is situated in a valley, so pilots must navigate the narrow canyons, usually meaning that autopilot is out of the question, resulting in a hand-flown approach starting from usually about 15 to 18,000 feet. It also must be visual conditions down low with ceilings high enough to navigate the canyons. All of these factors present a very unique challenge, which was one of the things I was most excited for as a passenger, as you can see us here flying through the canyons towards the runway. And as we make this one final S-turn, you can actually see the runway there just to the left of the screen. that, we made it to the wonderful Tibetan country of Bhutan. A wonderful flight with DrukAir in the books. I don't feel I can rate this flight using the same standards as usual, since the flight isn't about the flight itself, it's about the destination. Sure, the seats aren't game changers, but the crew was some of the nicest crew I've had in a while, and it was some of the best food I've ever had on an airplane. And really, that amazing approach is what we were all here for. As I got off the plane, we headed into the terminal at PARO Airport, which just may be the most beautiful airport terminal in the world. My next video actually will include a more in-depth look at this beautiful airport and the terminal building, including business class on Bhutan's other national airline, so stay posted for that. In the meantime, we headed inside into the highly decorated building, presented the visa that I had to get for this trip, and through a quick and simple immigration. This was where I saw quite possibly the most amazing baggage claim I had ever seen. Just makes me think about if other airports had these. Imagine if JFK's baggage claim had the New York skyline, or if SFO's had the Golden Gate Bridge. I just wish all these airports could have the amount of detail put into them that this one has. And yes, I know that logistics and efficiency take precedence in that case, but it would still be nice. Anyways, for now, welcome to Bhutan. Join me next week as we explore the airport a bit more and try departing this difficult airport. But for now, safe travels, and I'll see you guys next time.